Presenter is Mr. A. Rafiq, who's a MD, Windsor Infotech Limited. Just to give brief background regarding Rafiq. Rafiq is a COBIT 5 user and implementer since first edition of COBIT, released in 1996. He is a well-known COBIT evangelist and has made presentation on IT governance, IT assurance, and COBIT implementation at conference of ISACA across the world since 1998. So please welcome Mr. A. Rafiq.
Good afternoon. Hello, I said good afternoon. Yeah, that's better. Okay. So I think you already have my introduction. This session has got 3 tracks. If I was not taking the session, I would have been probably attending one of them. So I don't have any issues with this crowd which we have. But I'm delighted that we have so many people who are interested in COBIT. I've been using COBIT since 1996, the first edition. And first time I was asked to speak on COBIT. I was just wondering how will I speak. That was the first Karnataka conference we had in Bangalore in 1996. And one of the best ways I found to learn is to actually teach. Because that it gives you a lot of responsibility that you have to communicate. Then it's important that you need to have understanding. So I spent a lot of time in going through COBIT 1, and then finally the 30-minute session was made. And before the session, I was hesitant, can I speak for 30 minutes? But somehow I was able to make the presentation for 30 minutes. Recently, I went to a conference in Bombay, and they asked me, because of some delay, like what we had here, one of the things they did was they cut down on the speaker presentation. And they told me initially 1.5 hours, then it came to 1 hour. And before I started, they asked me, how much time do you require? I said, on this topic, I can speak for probably 1 week to 10 days. So it all depends on how much time do you have. So I asked the audience, how much time do you have? And then it's said there's an interesting speaker who asked in the session, how much time do you have? So there was no response. Finally, one person from the end said, you can have as much time as you want. We'll be here for 30 minutes. So I do not want to end up in that particular way. As for COBIT is concerned, I have been using COBIT for quite a long time, since in the first edition, more as an IT assurance, in IT governance, and also in implementing and training. And in COBIT 5, I also had the additional privilege of being part of the member of the task force. This helped me to actually gain insight into how COBIT is actually designed. So when you see that final product of COBIT, you find that, okay, it seems to be, when you read, you find it's a little difficult. So you have different perceptions of what COBIT 5 is all about. But if you start analyzing how it has been designed, probably I'll share with you some of the design concepts about how it's actually designed, then I think it will become much more easier, and I hope it will provide some better clarity on how COBIT could be used. And having used COBIT from the first edition to the latest edition, I would like to share my perception of how COBIT could be used. Before I get started, I would like to know first, is there any particular attachment to the seat you are sitting currently? So can I request you to move a little forward? Because I find I would like to have interaction with you, then I found I have to cross a long range. So if you can just come over, maybe then in that case it becomes, I can give lesser exercise to my neck. Probably you can just move a little this side. Yeah, can you come over this side? You're comfortable? Okay. I did a 2-day workshop on COBIT a few months back for the Bangalore chapter. And at the end of the 2 days, they said, participants said, I think we need to have a little more longer workshops. So as far as the COBIT 5 is concerned, I think there's a lot of content which can be covered. But we know we have this limitation that this session is 90 minutes. Okay, and let's get into the logistics also. There's a break. We are starting about 30 minutes late. There's a break for 30 minutes. So I just like to know, all of you are attending the next session? Yes. Okay, so in that case, what I thought is, if you have a concurrence, we can have the tea break for 15 minutes, and then probably we can finish by 5:45 instead of 6 o'clock. Is that okay with you? So in that case, what we do is we'll close at this one 4 o'clock. We'll have a tea break for up to 4:15. Instead of 30 minutes, we'll make it 15 minutes. And then we'll close by 5:45. So we'll have the traditional 15 minutes which we can spend in the session rather than the tea break. We can save that 15 minutes. Is that okay with you? Excellent. Okay. Now this session, I have certain slides to share with you, and these slides have been extracted from a one-day COBIT introduction course for which I am one of the accredited trainers. Any of you who are interested in teaching or training on COBIT can become a trainer on COBIT, and you can get the license material from COBIT. They'll send you the PowerPoint presentations and also the course material. It costs you $250 for an individual and $1,500 for an organization. So I have extracted from that particular presentation some of the slides which I thought is relevant for this particular session. The next session is on COBIT process assessment model. That session also, ISACA has a PowerPoint presentation. I've actually extracted from there, and I'll share with you in terms of what is relevant for you. And tomorrow, although it's supposed to be on COBIT process assessment model, I've just modified the session a little because I thought it's also important that you need to deep dive into COBIT. Because I found in many of the workshops on COBIT or presentations COBIT, you get a flavor or an overview of what COBIT is all about. It's just like being taken on a helicopter and shown this is what is all COBIT all about. I thought in addition to that, it's also important you need to deep dive down and know, okay, what are the specific components and how do I use. So tomorrow's session, about 70 minutes, I'm actually taking about 40 to 45 minutes on walking into COBIT and showing you this is how the components of COBIT are structured and this is how it can be used. This session was originally supposed to be taken by Robert Stroud. He could not come. So I'm taking this particular session. But there's one point which he had, which I'm not able to cover, where he said, how to sell COBIT to management in 30 seconds. No, I don't have that secret, so I cannot tell you how it can be sold in 30 seconds. But how it can be sold to management, I can definitely share with you. But can you do it in 30 seconds or 3 seconds or 30 minutes or 30 days? No, it's up to you. It depends on your skill set. Okay? This is what the perspective is. We have been hearing quite a lot about frameworks. COBIT, one more framework. How many of you have used or read COBIT 5? Okay, good. So it means you already gone through COBIT 5?
Had a glance of that.
Okay, had a glance. Have you used it in any particular place?
Not fully, small parts of it.
Okay. How many of you use COBIT 4.1? Okay, good. Have you made a comparison between 4.1 and 5? Anybody has made a comparison?
There is already an appendix, I think, with comparison.
Yeah, there is a mapping document between COBIT 4.1 and 5. Now, if you have implemented 4.1, then you need to look at 5. There is a challenge in terms of how do you interpret and how do you make the move from 4.1 to 5. So we'll also cover that in this particular session. Okay, let's get started. We have heard quite a lot about frameworks. And in the morning also said, it's not enough if you have awareness about what framework is. What is also important is action. So my belief or my objective in this particular session is not just to give you an awareness of what COBIT is all about. I would also like to probably motivate you to start using COBIT. If I could do that, I think my purpose of this particular session would be served. Because I'm not looking at just giving you an awareness of what COBIT 5 is all about. If you are a member of ISACA, you would find that all these publications are available and you can download it free of cost. Okay. I do a COBIT workshop, let's say, or there are other trainers who do this COBIT workshop, and they pay about $400 to $800 for a 1-day, 2-day workshop. Now, if the information about COBIT is already available, there's a PowerPoint presentation, there is a material, everything is available, why should someone pay $400 to $800 to attend a workshop? Which means there is something which is missing. Which means how to use practically, based on practical insights, what is missing in this material or the presentations. This is what is probably what I would like to share with you, based on my own experience. I remember a story of a beautiful sculptor who was asked, what is the secret of his success? He could pick out any stone, carve the stone, and build beautiful statues. So one of his students asked him, what is the secret of his success? How could he carve such beautiful statues? The sculptor said, there's no secret at all. When I see a piece of stone, I don't see the stone. I see the statue inside. But most of the people are not able to see. So I bring that piece of stone home, use my tools and implements, remove the unwanted parts. And once I remove the unwanted parts, the statue emerges from the stone. Now my question is, where was the statue? Was the statue in the stone?
In his mind.
The statue is in the, yeah, the statue is in the mind of the person, of the sculptor, okay, because he had the statue in his mind, and it is not enough if it was available only in his mind. He had to have the right tools and implements, work on that particular piece of stone and remove the unwanted parts. So that beautiful piece of statue is available for everyone to see and admire. And similarly in COBIT 5 also, if you see, there is a generic model. Like our speaker in the morning was saying, in any model or generic framework, it becomes a little more abstract. Okay, when it becomes abstract, you need to interpret, you need to customize. That's where your skill set comes in. There's always a challenge between people who say COBIT should be made for a specific industry. Let's say COBIT 5 for banking industry, COBIT 5 for this technology industry, like that. Okay, and in the COBIT 5 task force, we had a debate on all this, and we said COBIT has been generic and will continue to maintain it generic, because the beauty of COBIT 5 structure is, because it is generic, it can be customized, it can be used across sectors, across industries, regardless of the size. Okay, and that's what is important. Today morning, I was just thinking, after Hank made the presentation, what is the best way to share this insight with you? Okay, what I want to share with you is, okay, how can you simplify the understanding of COBIT? So because when you read COBIT, okay, there is a particular architecture which has been built in. How can I provide you that particular understanding of that particular architecture? So just sharing, I think I got an idea, okay, this is how it could be done. And just as I was taking my bath, I got one more idea which could close that particular session. And just as I was coming back, then I got the third idea, which gave me the clarity in terms of, okay, this could be the 3 key concepts which could be covered in conveying about understanding of COBIT. This is what I'll be sharing with you. Okay, before we get started, let's have a quick look at one small video. I'll show you this video, and then I want you to tell me okay, it's here. Right. Okay, I think the voice did not come out properly. Okay, anyhow, what is the message of this video? Do you think there's a particular message in this? What did you see? Okay. Yeah, in a practical world, in IT, you want to get results. Okay, you want results to be achieved, regardless what method you go. Okay, this is what is looked at. Now, when you're operating in a practical world in this particular way, do you have the time to actually use frameworks? Because frameworks require time to understand. Let's look at one more thing. Let's see whether you can get it. Okay, do you think this is a good way of parking?
Certainly very effective.
Very effective?
I would take the time to park in that space.
Okay. There's one more interesting one which I thought, oh, not this. Yeah. Now with this we'll close and then we'll get started. Okay, what is the message? Is there a message in this? Doing things differently. Okay, what else?
Attitude.
Attitude, okay.
No results without taking risk.
Sorry?
No results without taking risk.
Okay, no results without taking risk. Okay.
Somebody else has tried and the result went to somebody.
Oh, I see. Okay. What else? Yeah. Anything else?
Fish is good to eat.
I see. Okay, the meaning you get is based on what you're looking for. Okay. So if you look at this perspective, what is important is you have the traditional way of fishing. Okay, and then you had an innovative way of fishing. So you know exactly what you're looking for. Okay, you pick up the information which you want. Okay. Similarly in COBIT, any framework for that matter, and especially in a framework like COBIT, it's important that you understand the architecture. So that's what is important. So what we'll be walking through in this particular session is what is the architecture. If you can understand the architecture, then it becomes much more easier for you to navigate through the architecture. The second thing which you need to understand is what are the building blocks for any particular framework. And the third and most important thing is what are the building material. If you look at any construction, first thing is you need to understand the architecture. Second, you need to understand what are the key building blocks. And third is what are the building materials. Now the beauty of COBIT is it gives you the architecture, it gives you the building blocks, it also gives you the content, the building material, which you can customize. Now once you understand the architecture, then you will pick up the relevant building materials, you will use the relevant building blocks, you will pick up the relevant building materials, and you can build the structure depending on your requirements. And that is the beauty of COBIT, that you have a generic framework, and if you know how to pick up information from there, then you can customize and use it for any purpose based on your specific requirement. Now, why experts are required for implementing or interpreting COBIT is because you need to first understand for the enterprise which wants to implement COBIT, what is the architecture of that particular enterprise, what is the enterprise architecture. You need to understand what is the COBIT architecture. Based on that, you need to fit that particular COBIT architecture into the enterprise architecture depending on the business needs. You need to pick up the specific building blocks and you need to use the relevant building materials. If you have understood this, then I think you can use COBIT in any way you want. If you got this concept clearly, this is what I said, I got these 3 ideas when I was taking my bath. So this is what happens, especially when you're making presentations, you get some clarity. So if you understood this, now if you use these 3 key principles, which perhaps are not there in COBIT or maybe scattered in a different way in COBIT, if you can apply these 3 principles, 3 key ideas or 3 key steps in using COBIT, then I would say that you can go back home, all understanding of COBIT is already over. Okay, so what we'll actually do is, I'll take these concepts and see how we can actually use these concepts and how it is actually built in COBIT as we go on. Now presentation, we have about 65 to 70 minutes. What we'd like to do is, right. Okay. If you look at this is a catchword which is used. IT is complicated. IT governance doesn't have to be. Okay. The concept is, regardless of what IT governance is all about, regardless of what IT is all about, you can use the structure of COBIT, you can use the principles of COBIT and implement it in any enterprise. Not only in IT, but across the enterprise. This is broadly what I would like to cover in this particular session. First, why do we need COBIT? Why does the enterprise need COBIT? Why do you need to have understanding of COBIT? Second, how COBIT 5 can help you with implementing governance in enterprise IT. Third, what are the basics of implementing COBIT 5? What are the key basic fundamentals which you need to know before implementing COBIT 5? And how do you make the transition from COBIT 4.1 to COBIT 5? And how do you sell COBIT to management? These are the key concepts which I would like to cover in this particular presentation. Why COBIT? Let's have a quick look at why do we need COBIT. This gives you the key drivers. Depending on your organization, you need to decide why you need to have COBIT. COBIT gives you, in general, based on the surveys which have been done, that COBIT 5 could be used for providing guidance on enterprise architecture, can be used for enabling or building the policies and principles and the structure for asset and service management, and can also be used as the emerging source and organizational model, because COBIT could be that one single source model or umbrella framework under which you can integrate any other framework you have. You already implemented ISO 27001, or you implemented project management, or you implemented ITIL, any other framework you implemented, you can use COBIT as the umbrella framework and you can integrate other frameworks. And the second important thing which we actually spent a lot of time on was making COBIT generic so that it could be implemented not only within IT but across the business. And you can also use it for implementing controls as required for your specific purpose. Now, if you have a quick look at how COBIT has evolved, when the first edition of COBIT came in, it was used more as an audit framework. It has a set of control objectives which could be used by auditors as a benchmark for auditing. In the second one, we had specific controls. In the third edition of COBIT, this is where a radical shift came in, wherein COBIT was made not only for the auditors, we also had what is called as management guidelines, which could be used by the management. So there was the KGI, KPIs, and also certain RACI chart and input-output was provided. And COBIT 4 implemented the concept of IT governance. So when you want to implement control, it's not just about the boxes of controls which need to be implemented in certain specific functions, but you need to take a holistic view and you need to have governance. And that's where COBIT 4 and 4.1 came in. In COBIT 5, majority of the time was actually built in ensuring that governance of enterprise IT was built into the model of COBIT. You may be surprised to know that we had a meeting of the framework committee and the COBIT 5 task force with about 20 people, and we spent 3 days in Chicago discussing what should be the design of COBIT 5. At the end of this 3 days of meeting, with about 20 to 24 hours of meeting, at the end of this meeting, what we got was about 8 pages outlining what is going to be the design or structure of COBIT 5. Once the design or structure was framed, then after the other details were actually built. So just to show you that if you look at 20 people spending 3 days, which means 60 man days, and so 60 man days were actually spent in actually building the design of this particular framework. And during the evolution of COBIT 4, we also had 3 documents called as Risk IT, Val IT, and BMIS, which were separate documents which had their own principles of how you can actually build in the management controls as required in specific areas. For example, Risk IT focused on risk management, Val IT focused on value delivery, and BMIS focused on information security. In COBIT 5, effort was spent to ensure that all the principles of Risk IT, Val IT, and BMS were integrated as a part of COBIT 5. So you will have in COBIT 5 one holistic approach which is picked up from all these publications for ISACA, using which you will find that you don't need to refer to Risk IT, Val IT, BMS except for the details. Now you heard right from the morning that information is the business currency of the 21st century, and if business have to survive, you need to know how to have information. And businesses derive value not by controlling or restricting the use of information, but ensuring that information is used in such a way that it provides value to the stakeholders. So it's important that you need to have structure in place. It's important that you need to have process in place. You need to have system in place so that you are able to harness the power of information using the information technology.
I had a question.
Yeah?
Does COBIT for information security supersede the BMIS, or does it?
Okay, if you look at in terms of supersede, you can say the principle COBIT for information security is actually built on the principles of COBIT 5. Okay, so if you are using COBIT 5 for information security, most of the concepts of BMIS have already been integrated. So you may not need to refer to BMIS. BMIS is more at a conceptual level. It doesn't give you practical this one, whereas COBIT 5 for information security picks up the conceptual level of BMS. It also picks up the layer architectural concepts from COBIT 5 and gives you practical action in terms of what you should actually do. So if you're using COBIT 5 for information security, I believe you may not need to go back to BMIS unless you want to read it for academic interest to get understanding how the model of BMIS is.
That means to say it actually supersedes.
Yeah, you can say that. Okay. Why do organizations need to use COBIT? I think we already discussed this. The need for the enterprise to achieve value creation. Recently, I saw a presentation on IT governance or governance of enterprise IT, where the speaker was saying, Brian Barney was saying, that if you look at any enterprise, the value for enterprise or stakeholders comes in taking decisions. And decisions could be taken at different levels. Now, there are decisions at a strategic level, which the management at a senior level has to take. They have to take decisions in terms of at a strategic level, in terms of where the organization is going to go, what type of business we are going to go, how are we going to run that particular business. Based on the strategy, there has to be execution of strategy by the mid-level management to the operational level management. And the top management needs to have a system for monitoring whether this strategy has been properly executed by taking appropriate actions by the middle management. So there are decisions which need to be taken at the strategic level. There are decisions to be taken at the tactical level and the operational level. So you need to have a system for managing this. And all this is provided in the principles and enablers of COBIT. So what is important is to balance risk versus return and provide value. This is what was the basic fundamental premise of COBIT in the earlier edition, and this is what is actually inbuilt in COBIT 5 also. You also need to have a framework which can help you comply with the relevant laws, regulations, and policies, and this is what is actually done in COBIT 5 also. So if you look at the key concept in terms of the scope, COBIT 5 scope is not simply for IT, but it can be across the business. It is not only for large businesses or big businesses, it can be used even by small enterprises also. And the best or the most important or the key part of COBIT 5 is it brings in the concept of governance also as a part of COBIT 5, which was there at a generic level or a minimal level in COBIT 4.1. It's brought out much more clearly in COBIT 5. Recently, Gartner did a survey of the frameworks and decided which is the best framework as far as governance is concerned, and they have complemented the COBIT 5 and said, I think COBIT 5 is one framework which has the best information about how governance can be implemented in enterprises. Tomorrow, I think in the second session, you will have a presentation on COBIT, how you can integrate it with ITIL. There is an expert on ITIL who's going to make the presentation. When I went through his presentation, I was surprised that he also says that COBIT is the one umbrella framework under which you can integrate frameworks like ITIL or ISO, etc. Now, how COBIT 5 can help with governance of enterprise IT? Let's look at this. This gives you some of the business needs. What is very important in implementing any framework, which includes COBIT 5 also, is to understand what is the business needs. Just because you got a hammer, you should not go looking for a nail. So when you're looking at COBIT 5, once you understood the framework, if you have to implement COBIT 5 within any enterprise, you need to first understand what does the enterprise require. And you can pick and choose contents, framework, the architecture, etc. from COBIT and apply to the enterprise. So it's very, very important that you understand what are the business needs. Now, COBIT provides you a structure for understanding the business needs or the enterprise needs, based on which you can decide what should be the related IT goals, based on the IT goals, what should be the related IT processes you need to implement, or what are the enablers you need to have in place. So using COBIT 5, you can use it as the building block for building governance and integrating it with management. It also provides a holistic or integrated or complete view of enterprise governance and management. And another important aspect which was there in the earlier edition of COBIT also, that it provides a common language between IT and business for enterprise governance. So when you use COBIT, you find it becomes a common medium of interaction with auditors, with the management, and with the regulators also. Now, I was talking about three key things. If you remember, if you want to understand any this framework, first you need to understand the architecture. Second, you need to understand what are the building blocks. Third, you need to understand what are the building materials. So if you look at what are the architecture, now you should understand these 5 principles of COBIT. We'll quickly have a walkthrough of this. First is, when you want to implement COBIT, the first thing you need to understand is what are the stakeholder needs. So you need to understand who are the stakeholders. The stakeholders could be internal or it could be external. So you need to understand from what perspective you are actually implementing COBIT. So you need to understand the stakeholder needs. Second, you need to have framework which can cover the enterprise from end to end, not only one particular area. You can decide to choose which area you're going to implement. Third is, you should be able to use one single integrated framework which can be an umbrella framework under which you can implement other frameworks. That's what COBIT is all about. And the fourth is it provides a holistic approach which does not conflict with any other framework. And the fifth and most important thing is it also separates governance from management.